Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're tackling a really sensitive and layered topic, the allegations surrounding China's bioweapon development programs and the international concerns that come with it.
Yeah, definitely sensitive. We've pulled together quite a stack of sources for this. Government reviews, news reports, official statements, trying to get a broad picture.
Right. And our goal here, for you listening, is to help cut through some of the noise. We want to understand what these different sources are actually saying is important.
Exactly. We'll look at the history a bit, dive into the specific modern allegations, touch on the science and tech involved, which is moving fast, and see how different countries are, well, reacting.
Okay, let's jump right in. First off, maybe just level set.
Yeah.
What are biological weapons?
At their core, they're about using living organisms or, toxins from them, bacteria, viruses, fungi, basically weaponizing biology to cause harm on a large scale.
Nasty stuff. And it's not new, right? There's a history here.
Yeah. Unfortunately, yes, which is why we have international efforts to control them. Most importantly, the Biological Weapons Convention, the BWC. That came into force globally back in 1975.
And China is a signatory to that treaty.
That's right. And their official position, according to sources citing their foreign ministry, is very clear. They state they oppose all WMDs, including biological ones, and have never pursued offensive military biological activities. That's the stated policy.
Okay, but here's where it gets complex. Because that official line sits alongside concerns raised elsewhere, particularly in intelligence reports.
Like the U.S. Department of Defense's 2023 Biodefense Posture Review. It mentions China.
What does it say exactly?
Well, it suggests China probably maintains the knowledge and capability related to traditional bioweapons. Now, it's careful not to put them in the same category as states with likely ongoing programs, but
there are still concerns noted.
yes, concerns about compliance, specifically linked to research and activities with potential dual-use applications, especially within military medical institutions.
The dual-use issue. That comes up constantly in these discussions.
It's absolutely key, like nuclear tech, right? Biological research for, say, public health or vaccines can often look very similar technically to research that could be misused. The intent is hard to verify from the outside.
So it's about potential, not necessarily proven activity.
In many cases, yes, it's about assessing potential and transparency. For instance, sources citing the U.S. State Department's 2025 report mention concerns that China hasn't declared two specific historical sites, one in Beijing, one in Lingbao,
Historical sites. From when?
reportedly involved in bioweapon work before China joined the BWC. The issue raised is that while China submits annual BWC reports on labs and so on, these specific historical sites apparently haven't been included.
Okay, so that's a transparency concern. Are there more sort of contemporary incidents mentioned?
There are things that pop up in news reports which fuel concerns. Remember the arrest of 2 Chinese nationals in the U.S.? They were accused of trying to smuggle a dangerous fungus?
I do recall that. Officials called it a potential agroterrorism weapon.
Exactly. So that adds a specific data point, rightly or wrongly, to the broader narrative of concern.
And inevitably, the Wuhan Institute of Virology comes into play here, especially post-COVID.
It does. Now, China strongly denies any lab leak theory, and, many scientists do favor a natural origin for COVID-19. But you also had the FBI director stating publicly in early 2023 their assessment pointed to a lab origin.
A Chinese government-controlled lab, I think was the phrase used.
Right. And the DoD review we mentioned also notes, more generally, that the risk of accidental lab leaks is rising globally. That's due to more high-containment labs doing risky research, sometimes without enough oversight. It's a broader issue, but Wuhan gets looped in.
So let's talk about the future. How are things like AI and synthetic biology changing the picture?
This is where it gets really potentially worrying for analysts. Experts are warning these technologies could massively speed up bioweapon development, making it faster, easier, maybe harder to detect.
Faster how?
The CIA director used the term hockey stick acceleration regarding AI's potential impact. Think designing pathogens or optimizing delivery systems much more rapidly than before.
So the plausibility of a state actually running a significant program today, it's higher.
The knowledge and capabilities seem to exist, according to these sources. The DoD points out that new tech might allow synthesizing toxins in militarily relevant quantities, not just for small, targeted things.
And that blurring between military and civilian research in China, the dual-use thing again, makes verification even harder.
That's precisely the challenge highlighted. Disentangling intent when the research itself could be legitimate civilian work.
How are other countries and international bodies reacting to all this?
It's mixed, reflecting the complexity. The U.S., for example, raises concerns publicly and imposes sanctions on certain Chinese entities over proliferation worries.
But China is still participating in the BWC process.
OS. Sources note they're active in BWC meetings, promote the treaty, and have actually proposed establishing a verification mechanism, which is something the BWC currently lacks, a major weakness.
A verification mechanism. That sounds positive.
It does. China also points to its own biosafety law from 2021, which explicitly bans bioweapon development and actually encourages international cooperation. So you have these competing narratives and actions.
And what about collaborations? Are there joint projects that raise flags?
Well, there are reports, for example, about joint infectious disease research between China and Pakistan. Some news reports, citing intelligence sources, view these with suspicion, suggesting potential covert deals.
But China and Pakistan deny this.
They do, and in fact, they've jointly proposed non-proliferation ideas within the BWC framework. So again, it's hard to definitively assess intent versus capability versus cooperation from the outside, especially when, as one review noted, you also have to factor in potential misinformation campaigns.
Okay, so wrapping this part up, we've covered a lot. We've seen sources highlighting this tension. China's official BWC stance versus these external concerns.
Right, concerns driven by that dual-use dilemma, specific allegations like the historical sites or the fungus incident, and definitely the accelerating tech like AI.
And the huge challenge of verification. But we also noted China's counterpoints emphasizing compliance, their domestic law, pushing for verification mechanisms within the BWC.
And understanding all these different facets, the technical side, the treaty limitations, the differing national perspectives, it's really crucial because advances in biology and AI, they impact global health and global security for everyone.
It really drives home the stakes. So here's something to think about as we close this deep dive. Given how fast biotech is moving and how hard everyone admits verifying BWC compliance actually is, what else might be needed?
Yeah, what kind of international cooperation or safeguards, maybe beyond the current treaties, could actually build trust and ensure biosecurity in this, well, rapidly changing world?
Something for you to chew on. Keep digging into these questions yourself. Stay curious.